Grandpa Ken, that's me, reads old books. Kenamar Videobooks, books that read themselves. Fables in rhyme for little folks. This is the list of stories we will be reading. Fables in rhyme for little folks. Adapted from the French of Monsieur LaFontaine. Written by W.T. Larned. Illustrated by John Ray. To all little Americans, with the hope that they may become better acquainted with our friends, the French. The Frog Who Wished to Be as Big as the Ox. There was a little frog, whose home was in a bog, and he worried 'cause he wasn't big enough. He sees an ox and cries, "That's just about my size. If I stretch myself, say, sister, see me puff." So he blew, 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 saying, "Sister, will that do?" But she shook her head, and then he lost his wits. For he stretched and puffed again, till he cracked beneath the strain, and burst and flew about in little bits. Envy. The moral of this story is, envy can lead to self-destruction. The Grasshopper and the Ant. The grasshopper, singing all summer long, now found winter stinging, and ceased in his song. Not a morsel or crumb in his cupboard, so he shivered and ceased in his song. Miss Ant, who was his neighbor, to her he went, "Oh, you're rich from labor. I've not got a cent. Lend me food, and I vow I'll return it, though at present I have not a cent." The Ant's not a lender, I must confess. Her heart's far from tender to one in distress. So she said, "Pray, how passed you the summer, that in winter you come to distress?" "I sang through the summer," Grasshopper said, "but now I'm glummer, because I've no bread." "So you sang?" sneered the Ant. "That relieves me. Now it's winter. Go dance for your bread." He who will not work shall not eat. The moral of this story is, work today if you want to eat tomorrow. The Cat and the Fox. The cat and the fox once took a walk together, sharpening their wits with talk about the weather. And as their walking sharpened appetite too, they also took some things they had no right to. Cream that is so delicious when it thickens pleased the cat best. A fox liked little chickens. With stomachs filled, they presently grew prouder, and each began to talk the louder, bragging about his skill and strength and cunning. "Pooh!" said the fox, "you ought to see me running. Besides, I have 100 tricks. You, cat, you? What can you do when Mr. Dog comes at you?" "To tell the truth, the cat said, "though it grieve me, I've but one trick, and that's enough, believe me." There came a pack of foxhounds, yelping, baying. "Pardon me," said the cat, "I can't be staying. This is my trick." And up a tree he scurried, leaving the fox below a trifle worried. In vain he tried his 100 tricks and ruses, the sort of thing that Mr. Dog confuses. Doubling and seeking one hole, then another, smoked out of each until he thought he'd smother. At last he once more came out of cover. 2 nimble dogs pounced on him. All was over. Here's a graveyard with poor Reynard the fox. The moral of this story is, one really good trick is better than 100 poor ones. The hen with the golden eggs. To this lesson in greed, pray, little ones, heed. Each day, we are told, a most wonderful hen laid an egg made of gold for this meanest of men. So greedy was he was not satisfied. "What is one egg to me? I want all that's inside." He cut off her head and began to explore, but the poor hen was dead and could lay eggs no more. The moral of this story is, try to get rich all at once, and you may lose what you have. The dog and his image. A foolish dog, who carried in his jaw a juicy bone, looked down into the stream, and there he saw another one. Splash! In he plunged. The image disappeared. The meat he had was gone. Indeed, he nearly sank, and barely reached the bank. The moral of this story is, be satisfied with the good thing you have in your hand or mouth. The acorn and the pumpkin. Once there was a country bumpkin who observed a great big pumpkin to a slender stem attached, while upon an oak tree nourished, little acorns grew and flourished. "Bah," said he, "that's badly matched." If, despite my humble station, I'd a hand in this creation, pumpkins on the oaks would be, and the acorn, light and little, on this pumpkin stem so brittle, would be placed by clever me. Then, fatigued with so much thought, he rest beneath the oak tree sought. He soon in slumber found repose. But alas! An acorn falling on the spot where he lay sprawling, hit him plump upon the nose. Up he jumped, a wiser bumpkin. "Gosh," he said, "suppose a pumpkin came a-fallin' on my face." After all, if I had made things, I'd allow that I'm afraid things might be somewhat out of place. The moral of this story is, what nature has made is well made. The Raven and the Fox. Mr. Raven was perched upon a limb, and Reynard, the fox, looked up at him, for the raven held in his great beak a morsel the fox would go far to seek. Said the fox in admiring tones, "My word, Sir Raven, you are a handsome bird. Such feathers! If you would only sing, the birds of these woods would call you king." The raven, who did not see the joke, forgot that his voice was just a croak. He opened his beak in his foolish pride, and down fell the morsel the fox had spied. "Ha, ha!" said the fox, "and now you see you should not listen to flattery. Vanity, sir, is a horrid vice. I'm sure the lesson is worth the price." The moral of this story is, be wary of flatterers. The City Mouse and the Country Mouse. A city mouse with ways polite, a country mouse invited to sup with him and spend the night. Said Country Mouse, "Delighted." In truth, it provided a royal treat with everything that's good to eat. Alas, when they had just begun to gobble their dinner, a knock was heard that made them run. The City Mouse seemed thinner, and as they scampered and turned tail, he saw the Country Mouse grow pale. The knocking ceased, a false alarm. The City Mouse grew braver. "Come back," he cried. "No, no, the farm, where I'll not quake or quaver, suits me," replied the Country Mouse. "You're welcome to your city house." The moral of this story is, better to eat crumbs in peace than cake in fear. The Lion and the Gnat. The Lion once said to the Gnat, "You brat, clear out just as quick as you can. Now scat. If you meddle with me, I will not guarantee that you won't be slammed perfectly flat. Do you see?" Said the Gnat, "Because you're called king, you thing, you fancy that you will make me take wing. Why, an ox weighs much more. Yet I drive him before, when I get good and ready to sting. Now roar!" Then loudly his trumpet he blew, and then whoo! How fiercely and fast at his foe he flew, from the tail to the toes. He draws blood as he goes, and then he starts in to sting and to chew his nose. Sir Lion was mad with the pain. In vain he roared and he foamed and he shook his mane. And all the beasts that were nigh fled in fear from his cry. But the gnat only stung him again, in the eye. He looked and laughed as he saw, ha ha, the lion self torn by his tooth and claw. So his Majesty's hide with his own blood was dyed. Said the gnat, "Shall I serve you up raw or fried?" It's finished. The lion's loud roar is o'er. He's bitten and beaten, he's sick and sore. But a spider's web spread trapped the gnat as he sped, with the news, he will never fight more, he's dead. The moral of this story is, pride and boasting can lead to ruin. The dove and the ant. An ant, who in a brook would drink, fell off the bank. He tried to swim and felt his courage sink. This ocean seems so wide, but for a dove who flew above, he would have drowned and died. The friendly dove within her beak a bridge of grass stem bore. On this the ant, though worn and weak, contrived to reach the shore. He said, "The tact of this kind of act I'll cherish evermore." Behold, a barefoot wretch went by with slingshot in his hand. He said, "You'll make a pigeon pie." "That will be kind of grand." He meant to murder the gentle bird, who did not understand. The ant then stuck him on the heel. So quick to see the sling, he turned his head and missed a meal. The pigeon took wing, and the dove lived on to love, beloved by everything. The moral of this story is, your good deeds will come back to you. The Fox and the Grapes. Rosy and ripe, and ready to box, the grapes hang high o'er the hungry fox. He pricks up his ears, and his eye he cocks. Ripe and rosy, yet so high, he gazes at them with a greedy eye. He knows he must eat and drink, or die. When the jump proves to beyond his power, "Pooh," says the fox, "let the pigs devour fruit of that sort. Those grapes are sour." The moral of this story is, sometimes what we cannot get, we pretend is not worth having. The ass in the lion's skin. An ass in the lion's skin arrayed made everybody fear, and this was queer, because he was himself afraid. Yet everywhere he strayed, the people ran like deer. Aha! He is betrayed. No lion has that long and hairy ears. Old Martin spied the tip, and country folks who are not in secret of the joke, with open mouths and eyes, stare at old Martin's prize, the lion led to mill with neck in yoke. The moral of this story is, though you wear fine clothes, silly words reveal a fool. The Fox and the Stork. Old Father Fox, who was known to be mean, invited Dame Stork in to dinner. There was nothing but soup that could scarcely be seen. Soup never was served any thinner, and the worst of it was, as I'm bound to relate, Father Fox dished it up in a flat china plate. Dame Stork, as you know, has a very long beak. Not a crumb or a drop could she gather, had she pecked at the plate every day in the week. But as for the fox, sly old father, with his tongue lapping soup at a scandalous rate, he licked up the last bit and polished the plate. Pretty soon Mistress Stork spread a feast of her own. Father Fox was invited to share it. He came, and he saw, and he gave a great groan. The Stork had known how to prepare it. She had meant to get even, and now was her turn. Father Fox was invited to eat from an urn. The urn's mouth was small. It had a long neck. The food in it smelled most delightful. Dame Stork, with her beak in, proceeded to peck. But the fox found that fasting is frightful. Home he sneaked. On his way there he felt his ears burn, when he thought of the Stork and her tall, tricky urn. The moral of this story is, one bad act may get you another. The Monkey and the Cat. Jocko the monkey, Mouser, his chum, the cat, had the same master. Both were sleek and fat, and mischievous. If anything went wrong, the neighbors were not blamed, be sure of that. Jocko, 'tis said, was something of a thief. Mouser, if truth be told, would just as lief much stolen cheese as chase the midnight mouse. The praise bestowed on either must be brief. One day these two rogues, stretched flat before the fire, saw chestnuts roasting. Ah, could we conspire to jerk them out, said Jocko, from the coals? We'd smash the shells and have our heart's desire. Come, Brother Mouse, this day 'tis your turn to do some bold and desperate thing to earn a reputation. You know you are so quick. Snatch out the nuts before they start to burn. Alas, that I, a monkey, was not made to play with fire. But you are not afraid, so Mouser, pleased, like many a cat or man, with pretty words, sly Jocko's wish obeyed. Into the fire he put a practised paw. Out came a chestnut clinging to his claw. Another and another. As they dropped, Jocko devoured them whether roast or raw. A servant enters. Off the robbers run. Jocko, you may be sure, enjoyed the fun. But Mauser's paw is sadly singed. For what? Just to get the nuts for Jocko? He got none. The moral of this story is, beware of flatterers, even if they seem to be friends. The Hare and the Tortoise. Said the Tortoise one day to the Hare, "I'll run you a race if you dare. I'll bet you cannot arrive at that spot as quickly as I can get there." Quoth the Hare, "You are surely insane. Pray, what has affected your brain? You seem pretty sick. Call a doctor in, quick, and let him prescribe for your pain." "Never mind," said the Tortoise. "Let's run." "Will you beat me?" "Why, certainly." "Done." While the slow Tortoise creeps, Mr. Hare makes 4 leaps, and then loafs around in the sun. It seemed such a one-sided race. To win was almost a disgrace. So he frolicked about, then at last he set out, as the Tortoise was nearing the place. Too late! Though he sped like a dart, the Tortoise was first. She was smart. "You can surely run fast," she remarked, "yet you're last. It is better to get a good start." The moral of this story is, slow but steady can win the race. The Heron who was hard to please. A long-legged heron, with long neck and beak, set out for a stroll by the bank of a creek. So clear was the water that if you looked sharp, you could see the pike caper about with the carp. The heron might quickly have speared enough fish to make for his dinner a capital dish. But he was a very particular bird. His food fixed just so, at the hours he preferred. And whence he decided 'twas better to wait, since his appetite grew when he supped rather late. Pretty soon he was hungry, and stalked to the bank, where some pond fish were leaping, a fish of low rank. "Bah, bah," said the bird, "sup on these? No, not I. I'm known as a heron. As such I live high." Then some gudgeons swam past that were tempting to see, but the heron said haughtily, "No, not for me. For those I'd not bother to open my beak, if I had to hang round come Friday next week." Thus bragged the big bird, but he's bound to confess that he opened his elegant beak for much less. Not another fish came. When he found all else fail, he was happy to happen upon a fat snail. The moral of this story is, don't be too fussy about what is on the menu today. The raven who would rival the eagle. An eagle swooped from the sky and carried off a sheep. A raven, seeing him, said, "I could do that. if I should try. His meal comes mighty cheap. Of all that well-fed flock was one, as fat could be. The raven rose and lit upon her back. She seemed to weigh a ton, so very fat was she. Oh, oh, her wool was wondrous thick. It would have made a mat. The raven's claws are caught and stick. He's played himself a pretty trick to fly off with one so fat. Ba, ba, caw, caw, cry bird and beast. The shepherd comes at last. Sir Raven, who would find a feast, is from the woolly one released, and in a cage kept fast. The moral of this story is, you cannot be what you are not. Accept what you are. The Miller, His Son, and the Ass. A miller and son once set out for the fair to sell a fine ass they had brought up with care. And the way that they started made everyone stare. To keep the ass fresh, so the beast would sell dear, on a pole they slung him. It surely seemed queer. He looked, with his heels up, like some huge chandelier. One person who passed them cried out in great glee. "Was there anything ever so silly?" said he. "Can you guess who the greatest ass is of those three?" The miller at once put the brute on the ground, and the ass, who had liked to ride the other way round, complained in language of curious sound. No matter, the miller now made his son ride, while he followed after, or walked alongside. Then up came three merchants. The eldest one cried, "Get down there, young fellow! I never did see such manners. A graybeard walks where you should be. He should ride, and you should follow. Just take that from me." "Dear sirs," quoth the miller, "I'd see you content." He climbed to the saddle. On foot the boy went. Three girls passed. One said, "Do you see that old gent? There he sits like a bishop. I say it's a shame, while that boy trudging after seems more than half lame." "Little girl," said the miller, "go back whence you came." Yet this young creature so worked on his mind that he wanted no woman to call him unkind. And he said to your son, "Seat yourself here behind." With the ass bearing double, they jogged on again, and once more met a critic who said, "It is plain, only dunces would give their poor donkey such pain. He will die with their weight. It's a shame and a sin. For their faithful servant they care not a pin. They'll have nothing to sell at the fair but his skin." "Dear me," said the miller, "what am I to do? Must I suit the whole world, and the world's father too? Yet it must end some time, so I'll see this thing through." Both father and son now decided to walk, while the ass marched in front with a strut and a stalk. Yet the people who passed them continued to talk. Said one to another, "Look there, if you please, how they wear out their shoes while the ass takes his ease. Were there ever, do you think, 3 such asses as these? Said the miller, "You're right. I'm an ass, it is true. Too long I have listened to people like you. But now I am done with the whole kit and crew. Let them blame me or praise me, keep silent or yell. My goings and comings they cannot compel. I will do as I please." So he did, and did well. The moral of this story is, try to please everybody, and you please nobody. This has been a Kenamar video book. Please visit us at Kenamar.com.